Over the years, a commonly recurring question on the Christian college campus has to do with God's will. And I have been overhearing some of the answers I have been giving to that question of late, especially as I have reflected on the how of God's will in my own life. And I would like to share some of that with you this morning. Now, it is not that I have made the latest discovery for pseudo-evangelical formula Christianity, where life is served up as so many biblical formulae. In fact, it is quite the opposite for me. The fact that I do not have the answer makes me ready to share an answer in hope that it may be helpful to some of you this morning. Now, first, let me remind you that the question of God's will is not a peripheral one. Nor does the asking of this question imply that one has now become otherworldly, dissociated from men's needs and social concern. Quite the contrary. Rather than a question asked by a special kind of super-spiritual Christian, it is a question that lies at the very heart of a truly Christian life. Many of you here have heard me give this as a working definition of what I think a Christian is. A Christian, I have suggested to you, is a person who really wants to become one. It isn't a matter of simply changing lifestyles, but that there has been such a radical change at the very heart of one's life that God in His grace has come and said, "You're mine. You're a Christian. Now become one." And you really want to become one. And that's the basic change. Now, this still holds for me, but recently I have been giving this definition a slight turn. A Christian, if you will, is a person who really wants to do the will of God. Now, I know people who call themselves Christians who never really intend to do God's will. And they never really intend to love their enemies. And yet they call themselves Christians. They consider themselves disciples of Jesus Christ, but they never really intend to forgive someone a certain wrong. All of this in spite of the word of Jesus that said, "Not everyone who says, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." Now, it is in this context, I think, that Jesus has instructed us to pray. At the very heart of our prayer concern is to be the Father's name, the Father's kingdom, the Father's will. And at the foundation of this prayer and of this new life, of course, is the address that we have been invited to come to God after Jesus and say, "Father." We're told in Mark's Gospel that when Jesus prayed in the garden, He said, "Abba, Father." He didn't, as our translations tend to do, not knowing what the Abba means, say, "Abba, Father." He prayed Abba, which is the Aramaic that a little child would learn in his home. It is the term of intimacy. It is the term of special security in the home. It is a term which perhaps can best be translated into our language, "Dear Father." And that word was so well remembered that when the apostle writes to the Romans who speak Greek, he says, "We have received the spirit of adoption whereby we may turn to God and say, 'Abba, dear Father.'" Now, at the foundation of everything for us, then, is the truth that the eternal God has chosen to relate Himself to us as a Father. That He has come and by His Spirit has given